Reacts to Wrestling. I'm Matt, and I'll be reacting to Raw, Smackdown, NXT, and anything else that the WWE are putting out this week. You can kind of call this episode 1.5. I'm using it to talk about Raw and Smackdown. I recorded quite a lot in my first session and realised that the 15-minute time limit, just disregard that statement, made it better to split the podcast video, I still don't really know what to call this, into two segments. So this is episode 2 or episode 1.5, still my first attempt at uploading, so it's very rough around the edges. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Raw is chore a lot of weeks. Raw is not war. It's a war with my own better judgment to watch it, and I usually lose. But this week's show was good. You know, it's a long show, and a lot of the time I am half concentrating. I guess now I'm starting this channel, I'm going to have to fully concentrate. But, you know, this week wasn't so bad, so, you know, let's go through it. Roman Reigns comes out to a thunderous reaction, as Michael Cole says, and it is a big reaction. Guys like AJ and Finn have said that he's great in the ring, and in the last few months I've really started to notice it. You know, everything that he does, his ring psychology is fantastic, and now his character is starting to get he's starting to get into his character so much more as well, really embracing the booze, embracing the fact that it is his yard at the end of the day. Roman will keep doing Roman, but now he's doing it with such swag. I have no problem with him right now, saying he's the number one contender for SummerSlam. That's fine. Joe comes out next to interrupt Roman. Joe, I'm a fan also, but for different reasons. I mean, Joe didn't really do that much for me in NXT, to be honest. I got into NXT at the time of Neville and Zayn feuding. Still the high point for NXT for me, and because I hadn't seen Joe in TNA, you know, he didn't come across that special to me in NXT, although, you know, I didn't dislike his work. I love what he's doing on Raw. I love how they've positioned him. It was a very surprising finish to the 5-way for me. I didn't see Joe winning it, but it was a match that I'd most wanted to see with Brock, so here we are. It's happening. Joe is looking like an absolute monster, and I love it. I love his promo. He's just great on Raw. So it's Roman versus Joe later on in the night. Next up, we've got the Hardy Boys facing off against Gallows and Anderson. Being a very casual New Japan kind of fan, I've seen a little bit of their work. They were great in New Japan. They're being wasted in WWE. It's such a shame. They're a great tag team. Carl Anderson is great on the mic. Obviously, a very short tag title run, but I'm really not loving what has happened to Gallows and Anderson since they came in, and they came in pretty strong with a pretty nice debut, but it was literally within a matter of weeks they were kind of going to testicle jokes with a New Day and all that. I don't like what's happened with Gallows and Anderson. Big shame. And they're going against the Hardys, who obviously just lost the titles, and both teams are going for some kind of like momentum and rankings within this pretend ranking in the tag division. The Hardys, very interesting. If people are still a little bit in the dark about this, when they had their exclusive interview on the network with Corey Graves, you know, they were literally mentioning legal disputes. So it's very interesting. They're acknowledging that the broken character is kind of in flux at the moment, and hopefully we will get to see it. And when we do get to see it, it's going to give the Hardys a nice little resurgence, because at the moment I feel like they've lost a lot of steam because they're not able to use that broken gimmick, and they still get a good pop from the crowd, of course, but I feel like they haven't taken full advantage of the Hardys off of WrestleMania and that huge return. Elias Sampson is next, another NXT guy, and he really didn't kind of find his stride in NXT. He kind of did in a weird way, and towards the end it was cool for the crowd to rag on him, but never had any kind of high profile feuds. But here on Raw, I mean, he's getting over it pretty quick. He's getting a lot of boos from the crowd and quite a few cheers, to be fair. Changes his song up every week. It's like this week he didn't actually get to sing the song. There was no need for him to, because he tuned his guitar instead, which I thought was genius. And he's got his own custom nameplate as well. And you know it's good when you've got, you know, Undertaker, Bray Wyatt on that list, who, maybe he's, but, you know, it's a small list of names that have their own name thing, so I really like that touch. And yeah, Elias Sampson coming into a feud here with Finn Balor, which is interesting, from his feud with Dean Ambrose. It's not exactly a full-on feud at this point, but he's mixing it up with the right kind of guys. He's not being pushed down the card after his first month, so that's nice. Next, 2K18 debut trailer. I loved this trailer. An amazing kind of non-gameplay trailer, revealing at the end, after burning down the Stanford archives, he is Seth Rollins, which was kind of weird as well, because obviously Seth Rollins at this moment is a babyface, but from what I understand, he is the main bad guy in story mode of WWE 2K18. But it was really cool, Seth coming out and talking about how much, basically, like, you know, this meant to him. I had no problem with it. It was nice. It was a cool trailer, cool looking cover. He deserves to be on the cover, and the crowd chanting "You deserve it" as well. Like, they do a lot of stuff now to emphasize that, and good for Seth Rollins and good for 2K. I just wish the games were as good as, say, the NBA games in terms of like how detailed they were, or, you know, if somehow Platinum Games could make a WWE game and somehow make it kind of like Bayonetta but crossed with WWE, that would be amazing too. But I can't see that happening. So we'll just enjoy what we've got, won't we? Enzo and Cass are next. These guys, obviously, later on we'll get to what happens. But I've always been a fan of these guys. These two have been a great tag team. And I don't think they've ever needed the titles to really be enjoyable and to root for. We've got the Cruiserweights next on Raw. This match had Neville come out and not go on commentary, just move to the side, which I thought was great, just to scout Akira Tozawa, who seems to be the next Project #1 contender. Neville is right near the top for me as just as an overall performer since his comeback, and to me the division would be a lot worse without Neville, as bad as it is right now. I'm very glad he is still champion. Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe, their match, good hard hitting match. I'm not really going to talk too much about it because I've talked about these guys, what I like about them, and that's what this first episode is about a little bit more. What I'm going to talk about, obviously, is the finish. And this segment, this finish to the match, was, of course, Braun Strowman making his return. So Reigns looks like he's seen a ghost, as the saying goes, causing the distraction and causing Joe to make Roman pass out at the hands of the deadly Coquina Clutch. Again, this really helps for Joe, because Joe is a little bit of a distraction finish, but it makes the Coquina Clutch look incredibly strong. I really didn't, it's a surprise to see Roman. He didn't tap, but Roman is one of the most protected guys to be in this position of being made to pass out from a move. So great look for Joe, and going into his pay-per-view. So after Roman recovers, Braun comes down to the ring, and this is the point where he says, I thought I told you I'm not finished with you. That needs to be on the t-shirt. Great line. Crowd pops. He does the reverse choke slam. Kills Roman dead. And then announces if Roman is man enough, the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, they will have an ambulance match. And Braun Strowman now, easily one of the most exciting things going forward on Raw, now that he's back. I didn't expect him back this soon either. I really thought he was going to be out for another month or two. I think it was kind of like tentative he was going to be around for SummerSlam, but he's just back already. Amazing. Next up we got Miz, and I love Miz's work.
Really? Silence! Really? Silence!
Next up was our video package hyping up Brock Lesnar versus Samoa Joe. These guys had their physical confrontation last week. Samoa Joe getting the first headbutt in. Joe coming out looking on equal with Brock. That's the thing, he really did. Not above. But yeah, this is how Joe needs to be presented, as a real challenge for Brock. And obviously as a heel, putting his hands on Paul Heyman. But just a badass guy who wants Lesnar to know he's not afraid of him, and that's how they're billing it, and that's how they're presenting it with these video packages. And the interesting thing, you know, with it being this kind of interview sit-down segment, is we get to hear Brock talk, and the amazing Mr. Heyman, who just does all of the talking for him, because Brock doesn't really need to talk. So the fact that Brock is even acknowledging Joe, as strange as it sounds, it gives it that little bit more of a rub, and it makes you that little bit more excited for the match. So great stuff in this video package. The women were out for the penultimate segment of the evening, and after the brawl devolved, we got to see Bayley come out at the end and actually, to me, get a little bit of a heat back, because man, they've been killing Bayley. She lost so decisively at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, where she did not get extreme to any degree. And here she is coming back, and like I say, actually getting quite a lot of offense in on everybody. She's got a new t-shirt as well, which is just a bit more plain. It's kind of like grey. It's been pointed out, it looks like the Batman logo, which I didn't notice, but apparently that's what it looks like. So maybe that's it. She's now going to just be a hugger vigilante, and she's going to be a little bit more of a badass. But however it is, you know, you've got to recover Bayley a little bit somehow, and this is a good way to do it. So the last segment of the night, the big talking point from this week, the reveal of the attackers of Enzo and Cass. And it all comes down to, as had been speculated, it is in fact Cass. He turns on Enzo, and it is the end of the money-making merch machine that is Enzo and Cass, which I find weird in that way. The fact that, just like the New Day, this is a super hot tag team. They do not need the titles to sell loads of merch and to get loads of people to buy into their act. But the promo itself from Cass was probably pretty close to reality, in that Enzo does hold Cass back as a singles competitor. He probably would have had a title by this point if those guys were never a tag team, maybe just based on his size. Enzo is, in Cass's words, dead weight, and it's going to be really interesting to see how Enzo is going to look going forward, because Cass, they've probably got big plans for. Enzo, I'm not so sure. You know, comedy act, and he works better with Cass, so I don't really know how the hell they're going to do it, but I wish him all the best success, because he is a top guy. If you ever see any of the network stuff with him, I think he was on Breaking Ground quite a lot. I seem to just remember seeing him a lot out of character for on some WWE show, and Enzo Amore is a fantastic guy, so hopefully he will be okay now that that group are done. So Smackdown begins with talk of the controversy surrounding the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. The finish was not exactly how I wanted, just because the visual of the first women's Money in the Bank winner being a man just took it a little bit too far. I wouldn't mind if there's some assistance from Ellsworth, but I don't think he should have literally taken the briefcase and thrown it down to Carmella. The first actual promo that we see is Carmella drawing a lot of heat, as you'd expect, of her talking about, you know, the lack of precedent in that first ever match of its kind, and how she feels she should keep this Money in the Bank briefcase. The thing is, she to me is definitely the person who makes the most sense to have as Miss Money in the Bank. So with Ellsworth banned from ringside next week, as was announced on Talking Smack, I can't see her actually winning this, whereas if he was still at ringside, I think some shenanigans still would have allowed her to win, but I can't see her winning kind of just on her own merits. So who do you give it to? I mean, Charlotte is the kind of obvious choice. Becky, I think, take it. Not often you have a babyface with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and that could be good. I mean, the other options, Natalya and Tamina, obviously left field choices. I don't see it happening. So for me, you know, Becky, Charlotte, or I guess to a lesser extent, Carmella still are the obvious choices, but I can't see Carmella taking it. The New Day come out next and do their bit. New Day definitely refreshed characters now that they're on SmackDown. Good single match from Big E and Jimmy or Jey Uso here. I haven't written it down, so I can't tell you which one it was, but kind of cool high energy match, as these guys always put on. A great match at the pay-per-view again as well. And yeah, this feud can continue. These guys are really good friends in real life, so that definitely helps with the feud, and the fact that these guys can just kind of really bounce off each other in ring and out of the ring, both great on the mic, both teams. So this feud continuing, and it's all good for me. Naomi's backstage, has a short interview. Naomi as well, for me, another wrestler that I really enjoy. Naomi being built up, winning the title back at WrestleMania. I can see her holding on to it for a little while. And just in general, the women's division being brought up nicely every week and every month. They focus more and more on the women, and it's becoming much less about, oh, look at this women's revolution we got going on, and it's just, let's present our women on equal footing with our men and give them just as much time, and it's a given that their feuds are pretty much as high profile as the men's. So we got another backstage interview with Randy Orton, losing on Sunday in the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Haven't talked about this match yet. I did enjoy it. Enjoyed the guys at ringside, his father, Ric Flair, and all the other legends, and their small amount of involvement. It was, you know, just your kind of standard match in that sense, with a little bit of involvement of getting the crowd on board with the hometown hero, and getting some heat for the Singh brothers for putting their hands on Orton's dad, giving Orton a good reason as well to keep going after Jinder. Absolutely great line here. Maybe he'll go over to India and start RKOing cousins left and right, and daughters and babies and dogs, and just everyone's going to get an RKO that knows Jinder. I love it. And it does kind of make me wonder, are they hinting at some kind of pseudo turn for Randy? I mean, he's never been kind of an all smiling babyface, but now what does he do? You know, saying he'll go through anybody to get to Jinder. So what does that mean? I might be reading a bit too much into it, but I'm thinking maybe some kind of tweaking character, even if it's just a pure, more aggressive one, would be quite interesting to see. So big match of the night, Dolph Ziggler, Shinsuke Nakamura. I've got to talk about my feelings towards Shinsuke and how he is being pushed on the main roster thus far. Up until Money in the Bank on Sunday, I really was not a fan of what they're doing with him. His matches haven't been what they should have been at this point. His match against Dolph at Backlash was good, but not great, and definitely one of the biggest victims of the WWE style of having to work more safe, more slowly, to play to kind of a more general and casual audience. But after Sunday, I do have a little bit more faith that going forward, they're going to push Nakamura in a slightly better way. This match, for instance, seemed a little bit more lively than their Backlash match. Could be recency bias, but I don't think so. I'd have to say it was better than their first match. Shinsuke wins with the Kinshasa to the back, but he didn't go for the pin. And then shortly after, hits another one, gets the pin, and Shinsuke continues to look good. We had Zayn versus Corbin announced for next week. Daniel Bryan talking to Zayn in the back, and Zayn and Becky having a nice little moment as well, saying they were rooting for each other in the Money in the Bank match, just really reinforcing their super clean cut babyface images, and they're both very good in those roles, so good little touch there. So here we do have Owens coming out that's saying that anyone from Dayton, Ohio could challenge him for his US title, knowing that nobody on the roster is going to be from this state and give him any kind of challenge. AJ Styles comes out and clearly not understanding Owens' kind of restrictions on there, so Owens reminds him of what they are. Chad Gable then comes out. It turns out he has just moved to Dayton, Ohio. Very convenient. Now the question is, where have American Alpha been up to this point? Since losing the tag titles to the Usos, really have been MIA. I just don't understand why these guys are so athletically gifted. Chad Gable, legitimate Olympic athlete, absolutely amazing in the ring. Nice characters as well. And I just can't see why they've been sidelined. But here we do have Chad Gable in a singles match against Kevin Owens, and this was actually a really good match, and just emphasises how good Chad Gable is, and what a shame it is these guys are being underutilised. One spot involving a deadlift German suplex. Chad Gable just picking up Kevin Owens like a little baby, slamming him over with a beautiful bridge for a near fall. The Hype Bros are backstage showing Daniel Bryan the video footage of how Zack Ryder got his injury. I still didn't actually see exactly where it was that the injury happened, but apparently it was when he was going for the Rough Rider at some point, but he didn't I don't think it was off a bump, it was more just from him jumping into the Rough Rider. But regardless, they're arguing for a tag title shot, himself and Mojo Rawley. I really feel there's a heel turn coming for one of them. That's what's being speculated, and that's what makes sense. These two feel like they could definitely get something out of feuding with each other. Daniel Bryan comes out for the final segment of the show on Smackdown to announce his decision for the Money in the Bank. So the first thing that he addresses is at the end of the show. But anyway, just a little bit about Daniel Bryan. One of my favourite wrestlers, one of the reasons I really stuck with the WWE after getting back into it. In my intro video, I'm wearing my far too small Respect the Beard t-shirt. So amazing wrestler in his time. I don't want to see him come back after his contract is up with the WWE, come back to wrestling and go to one of the indie promotions. His history of concussions is really scary, and I just hope that he can find peace in a life without being in the ring, and having his beautiful daughter and wife, and just having this role in the WWE of being one of the most over guys without even having to wrestle, because he's such a great guy. But Daniel Bryan comes down to the ring and makes his decision. Long story short, it's going to be a rematch next week, the second ever Women's Money in the Bank occurring shortly after the first one. and got quite a bit of boo from the crowd. One thing I did really love here as well was a big reaction for Brian saying he was going to punch Ellsworth really hard. I can't remember what line he said, but it was just really, really funny. So that's SmackDown Live next week, a big one to look forward to with that Women's Money in the Bank Part 2. This week's episode of NXT was a good one. NXT, obviously the third brand, my favourite show really overall. SmackDown is really great nowadays as well, but consistently week to week, NXT, it really feels very different. I mean, it's only an hour-long show. It's filmed at Full Sail, where the small crowd are just like into everything, and it's just really exciting to see new guys coming up from NXT, and just how the sort of the characters find themselves before they get into get onto Raw, get on SmackDown, get onto the main roster. So this week started off with the iconic duo Peyton Royce and Billie Kay coming out with Peyton Royce taking on Ember Moon, who's returning from injury. Ember Moon, one of my favourite female superstars on the roster. She's just badass. She's just got a cool moveset, a cool look. She had a fantastic match with Asuka at TakeOver a couple of takeovers ago. And here she is, looking to bounce back from injury. These two have got good chemistry. Ember and Peyton had a good hard-hitting match, and Ember obviously picking up the victory. Something that's very apparent in NXT is the kind of pecking order of things. There's not really any room for upsets, but that's what I like about it. You know, the champions have kept looking strong. They don't give away sort of cheap pinfalls to anybody, and the challengers are always looking strong as well. Everyone has their place, and you can just see everyone get sort of built up. Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, for example, they get backstage segments. They have their own T-shirts, iconic duo, and just a really good team. But obviously Ember is the one being pushed here, probably being pushed back towards a rematch against Asuka for the title again. As their match finished with Asuka essentially turning heel, even though it didn't really work, because the crowd still cheer her, and I will still cheer her because Asuka, she's just on another level. But anyway, good match between Ember and Peyton. Hideo Itami is next backstage, apologising to Cassius Ohno for his actions over the last few weeks, and GTSing Oney Lorcan about 20 times last week or a week before. Hideo Itami, so unfortunate, his run thus far. Such bad luck. 2 injuries have plagued Hideo and kept him off TV for so long. He was their first major international signing before Shinsuke Nakamura, before Finn Balor, before Samoa Joe. He was the first guy who came to NXT with a huge amount of buzz behind him, and unfortunately, aside from a number 1 contender match with Finn Balor in his first run and his title match against Bobby Roode from the last takeover, Hideo's never really been in that kind of main event scene consistently, and that's because of injuries. And at this point, you can tell it has kind of affected his ring work. So I don't really know where they go with Hideo. It seems like they were going for a heel turn, but now they've kind of gone back on that because now he's apologising to Cassius here. He should probably apologise to Oney, but Oney, I guess, is just completely dead at this point. But next up, we got the Ely brothers against Sanity. Eric Young, Alexander Wolf for the Sanity team here. Just something that I've noted. Sanity's music was different last time a member was in a match, but a member of Sanity in that instance was Big Damo, or Killian Dane. So I'm wondering if Damo just has his own slightly different variation on the Sanity music, but I actually prefer this original music. The new theme seems a little bit too clean in comparison. I like how totally chaotic and nonsensical. This time signature is on Sanity's original theme song, so I hope it was just a one-off, or if it is just for Killian Dane, I'd like Sanity to keep their original music. Nikki Cross still seems to have kept her whole mad kind of her madness levels seem to have not diminished, whereas the rest of Sanity seem to have reeled it in a little bit, since their debut, which is a shame, because I think the crazier the better for this team. Alexander Wolf, I'd say, is the one who is still really living that Sanity character. I love his crazy little rave dance that he does before he goes to run and attack someone in the corner. I seem to note that he always misses after he does his little rave dance as well. The guy moves out of the way, so I just find that hilarious. The crowd actually did pop a little bit here when he did his little rave dance as well, so it's good to see that it's not just me who enjoys that madness. And Sanity picking up the win, with a cool looking middle rope neck breaker, double team move. They announce a last woman standing match for next week, the rematch between Nikki Cross and Asuka for the title after the elimination match from last time. I keep going to say last week, and I can never remember if it is actually last week or the week before. But from their last encounter, Ruby Riott, the first woman that eliminated in that triple threat elimination match, left Nikki Cross and the champion Asuka, and the ladies just took it backstage where the match was thrown out. They were just fighting each other all over the arena. Nikki Cross trying to drown Asuka in ice water, which was just hilarious. And then they came back out to the arena, fought up onto the stage, and then Nikki just putting Asuka through the table, which is leading to, I'm pretty sure this is the first ever, certainly that I can recall, on NXT, probably on the main roster, but the first ever last woman standing match. This is a cool idea. I mean, obviously, I really can't see Asuka losing the title in this fashion, but I mean, I love the way that Nikki is being booked as, just crazy and just relentless in her attack of Asuka, and I mean, Asuka is just an incredible champion, undefeated for over a year at this point, a longer undefeated streak than Goldberg, and we've got this women's tournament coming up, so I can definitely see that being promoted as a chance to take on the Empress of Tomorrow for the winner of the Mae Young Classic, which is going to be happening. I'm guessing we'll see a few NXT women in that tournament, but I'm really excited about that tournament after how good the Cruiserweight Classic was last year. I'm fully expecting to see some styles that I've never seen from these female wrestlers that are going to be coming in from all over the world and showcasing what they can do. Then I'm fully expecting it to be ruined when they actually get onto the main roster and they're being misused and mishandled. But hey, let's enjoy it while it lasts when it comes up later on this year. Sonya Deville next, sticking with women. Sonya Deville is another new character here. Can't remember her original ring name, but she was on Tough Enough, and I really enjoyed her on Tough Enough. Her gimmick being that of an MMA fighter. I'm not a fan of her punches, her little punch taunt that she does when she comes out. I watch quite a lot of UFC, and I don't think that's how you really throw a good punch. She doesn't really follow through very well. Not quite sure if she's a heel or face. I'm pretty sure she's a heel, but particularly here against Rachel Evers, who was obviously a total babyface. But like I say, I like her character. She's definitely into the whole kind of MMA thing, sticking with punches and with takedowns, single, double leg takedowns, that kind of thing. and her finish. I mean, last time the commentators emphasise here that last time she knocked out her opponent. This time she has tapped out her opponent with pretty good looking arm triangle. To be fair, the kind of transition for that and the way she locked that in looked to me a lot better than her punches and her stomach punches that she hits Rachel with. But yeah, I mean, plenty of room for improvement, plenty of time to improve in NXT. So that's Sonya Deville picking up the win here. Next we have a little recap. Guess this was on their website of Bobby Roode having his photo session and seeing Roderick Strong with his family and taunting Roddy. Oh man, now this is just pure heel from Bobby Roode, which I loved. This got an audible ooh from me, like, oh no she didn't, when Bobby Roode says to Roddy's wife, hey, why don't you come talk to me when you want a real man, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Roddy goes and lays into Bobby Roode, and their match is set on the 400th episode in 2 weeks' time for their NXT Championship match. Roderick Strong, really great video packages a couple of months ago that showed you what he was all about. You know, showed him as the family man. He'd not really had a very well defined character in NXT. When he was in Ring of Honor, he was just Mr. Ring of Honor. So not really a WWE style gimmick, not something that kind of screams one particular character. But here, they've now put him as the family man, the guy that's doing it for his young family, and really nice. I mean, really got him over with myself more than he was, and with the Full Sail crowd, with those video packages. So we'll see how it goes in a couple of weeks. Again, I can't see Bobby losing the title in that fashion, sort of on TV. Although it is the 400th episode, so you never know. I mean, the last real surprise title change on NXT was Samoa Joe taking it from Finn Balor at a house show, at a non-televised event. So these things do happen, and it'll be a great match either way. So that is in 2 weeks on the 400th episode. Lastly, the main event, Cassius Ohno versus Aleister Black. Cassius Ohno just recently come back to NXT after some time on the indie circuit as Chris Hero, one of the original NXT guys. Cassius Ohno, someone who was there when I wasn't watching, someone who is very, very over with the crowd, as is Aleister Black. I was a little bit surprised that Ohno was getting so many prominent cheers over Aleister Black, because Aleister Black is the guy. This is their top new project. You can just tell by the fact that he's undefeated. He has his own custom nameplate, just like Elias Sampson and The Undertaker, and also the fact that he hasn't said anything about the title, and as strange as that might seem, because they are consciously sort of keeping him away from that title scene and any chance of him losing a match, by having a title match this early. I definitely see him as their next big thing. He's been on main event as well against Kurt Hawkins, killing Kurt Hawkins, and just great character, amazing look, very good moveset, and the commentators here mentioning quite a lot how Ohno and Black have a history on the indie circuit together, and Ohno actually trained Black at one point, but then Nigel making the point to say that was a long time. It's a very different Aleister Black since then. So these two have a great hard-hitting match. Finish comes from Ohno attempting his rolling elbow and being caught with the Black Mass spinning kick by Aleister Black for the win. But these two really went at it. And this is the good thing about NXT. Like I say, every week it's an hour long. It's at least one very, very enjoyable match, I would say. There's not many weeks where there's nothing good to take away from NXT, even though everything is generally built around the takeover specials. So it's kind of like you don't necessarily miss anything if you just watch the catch-ups leading in to takeovers. But I mean, it's like the main roster, if you don't watch the shows week to week, you don't get a real flavour for these characters and these stories. You can't be as invested in them when it comes around to the takeovers. But either way, watch Takeover if you don't watch Takeover when it comes around, because 9 times out of 10 it blows the main roster pay-per-views out of the water. So that wraps up episode 2. Thank you for listening to Matt Reacts to Wrestling once again. From here on out, I'll be doing shorter shows with a more kind of condensed look at each of the shows, because I have given you my views on a lot of the wrestlers. But yeah, still very much rough around the edges, as I said at the top of this episode, as I find my feet and as I work out how to do these things without them sounding super amateurish. But if you have enjoyed it, then do feel free to comment or like or subscribe. I think that's what people do when they like stuff on YouTube, right? And yeah, I will see you next time. Matt Reacts to Wrestling.